Mendi is a company that wants to improve and transform the brain health of the masses.
Can you train your brain to become more efficient in your daily life? My guest in today's podcast helps you hack your brain. His crowdfunding campaign was one of the most successful in Kickstarter history. I'm very happy to welcome Moha Ben Sofia, the CEO of Mendi. Hello, Moha, and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Pierre-Nicolas. Good morning.
I know it's very early in Sweden. So as I said, incredibly successful on Kickstarter with Mendi. Now it's your time. Can you explain us a little bit what Mendi is and why it's a revolution?
Right. So Mendi is a neurotech company. It's a company that I was the first investor in. The reason why we're even on Kickstarter was because, so when I invested, I told them that I was against it. I thought that Kickstarter to me sounded like a teenager with an idea, and I'm not a Kickstarter user. I never was before this. And the founders actually made me buy into the fact that Kickstarter is not about money. It's not about funds and resources. We always had that. It is about early adopters. It is about learning. So we're very, very happy that we launched on Kickstarter because we learned a lot. What Mendi does is Mendi is a company that wants to improve and transform the brain health of the masses. And that is basically what it does with a combination of things such as neurofeedback and a very powerful and accurate FNIRS device.
And you, as a person, you have also a very interesting story. So you are from Costa Rica. You're probably my first guest from Costa Rica on the podcast. I can't even imagine why a Costa Rican guy would actually come or move to Sweden. Can you explain a little bit how it comes?
When the weather is like this, I ask myself that question as well. Well, basically, yes, I am from Costa Rica, but I've been in Stockholm since 2014. So I've been here for a while, and the ecosystem is just incredibly rich. I've been incredibly fortunate. There's so many amazing companies, and I've been involved in a lot of different verticals, and that is the reason. My journey here started with a company called Fishbrain, which I helped scale, and then that turned into other companies, and now I'm involved in a lot of projects as an owner, and Mendi is my job and my obsession.
For those who are watching us on YouTube, I'm gonna share my screen and put a video of Mendi, of the Mendi device, so that you can see how it looks like. So tell us a little bit how it works.
Well, first of all, I take no credit for Mendi. That is the first thing that I need to clarify. Mendi is a company that was started by a Swedish engineer. His name is Sammy, who is somebody that was burned out. And it's one of those serendipitous things where he met another Swedish engineer and they ended up making a product. So one of these engineers, who is a serial entrepreneur, basically burned out. And he was basically one of those people that was just go, go, go. And all of a sudden he just couldn't take it anymore. And he just burned out, and he was, he just completely broke down. So he got really into meditation. And, because of his personality, he got into meditation, and he got really into meditation. And then after that, he was thinking, well, what's the next thing? What else is out there that is even more powerful than this? And that's how he discovered neurofeedback. And as Sammy does, he got really deep into neurofeedback, and he started going and he started using the neurofeedback and the EEGs and all this. And he started traveling and going and doing all the treatments. And he started seeing all these improvements in his own issues and his own well-being. And he started diving deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where he ended up buying the machinery, and he's, very costly machinery and all this. And then eventually, because he's a very inquisitive person, as most engineers are, he started having contact with a lot of the experts and a lot of the people from the neurofeedback world. And eventually he was led towards practicing on other people, not just practicing on himself. And that was basically how he ended up setting up a neurofeedback clinic in Stockholm, Sweden. Enter founder number 2, who is Rickard Eklof, who's an engineer that's been building touch screens for all the big companies for many, many years. And he walks in to the neurofeedback clinic for a consultation, and they meet and they start talking, and he takes a look at everything, and he says, there must be a better way of doing this. There must be a way of building this for the masses at a fraction of the cost. And he's one of those people with just unbelievable values that will trade, self gain for the gain of the masses any day of the week. And that is how Mendi was born. And this is, by early 2018, they already were building things.
Well, that's quite incredible. It sounds to me like serendipity, when people magically meet each other and then you come up with a very interesting product, right?
The funny thing about it is that I had never, when all of this is happening and the backstory that has built this company that I am running now, I have never heard of neurofeedback. I have never meditated. I know nothing about this space, and I have never heard of Mendi or, the reason why I ever got in touch with them was because about it was about 6 years before, when I was with Fishbrain, I met at an after work, because Fishbrain was like one of the cool companies in the ecosystem back then, and people knew that there was this Costa Rican guy that was helping scale it. And this guy had come up to me at an after work and added me on Facebook. And then 5.5 years later, he starts messaging me, "Hey, do you remember me? I've got this thing." I don't remember you. I don't know who you are. But he's like, "I've got this thing. It's amazing." And that happened to be Sammy. That happened to be one of the founders. And that is how I, as I always say, slipped on a banana peel and landed on Mendi. So I take no credit for absolutely anything.
Wow, that's a great story. You are a great storyteller too, right?
Well, the truth is colorful.
Well, does it work? So on another podcast, I had a guest who is also very successful. It's a Swiss company. They have invented a new keyboard, and he told me about how difficult it is for users to get used to new things. So we've been used to working with Averti or QWERTY keyboards for decades, and he explained me how difficult it is to actually rewire the brain. Is Mendi doing something for rewiring the brain, or what kind of effect can I expect from Mendi?
I think as we get deeper into this conversation, I'll get deeper into neuroplasticity and all these things. But I'm going to give you a little bit of my background after that stage. I'm going to keep kind of telling the story in a very non-scientific way, because I am not a scientist, and I have learned this in my 40s. I have learned this very, very recently, and I've become so engulfed by it because of my own personal experience. When I actually eventually met Sammy after he had messaged me, I met him because I went to see another company of mine. So I went to visit the founders of another one of my companies, and they needed some advice on something. And I went there and I wrote, "Sammy, all right, come show me what you're doing." And he comes and he brings me this device, this Mendi device. And he says, "Well, this device, it fixes this and it fixes that and it heals this and it heals that. And people do this." And it sounded like snake oil. And I asked him, "Well, who has invested?" Because you could tell it was a very beautifully designed product that it looks like it was made by a big company. I could tell it was very sturdy. It was great quality. And I could see the research that they had done on signal quality and all these things. And it's like, these things cost a lot of money and a lot of time. And when I asked him, who has given you the money, he said, "Oh, it's the Swedish Innovation Agency, Vinnova, Almi Invest, Propel, EU Horizons 2020. When I saw that, my common sense thing kicked in, and I said, "Look, they've done the due diligence. You're not just going to get money from these institutions by absolute bullshit, right?" Then I grabbed the device. I did a session. I did my first session with Mendi. I used it. It's kind of a mind-blowing experience the first time. And you're struggling to control it, and you don't really know how to use your brain. You don't know how to focus. Especially with me, I've got ADHD, and I've always had anxiety issues, PTSD, just a lot of, wartime stories that have caused me to be to have a lot of issues for a very long time. And basically what I said to him after that session, I was very intrigued, and it was clearly like a weird sensation. And I said to him, if 90% of what you're saying is bullshit, I'm going to invest right now. And that is the only time I've ever done that, where I just invest on the spot after a 15, 20-minute pitch. And that is how my journey with Mendi started. But then what happened is they gave me a prototype, a device, which is prehistoric now in hindsight. A year ago is like 100 years at the pace that this company is evolving. And this is probably 6-7 months before Kickstarter. And I start using it every day. And I start making improvements. Literally within 3 weeks, I have people telling me, "Why are you so happy? You feel so positive." I had people that I trust and respect and that know me really, really well, being like, "There's something different about you." And that's what clicked in my brain. I'm like, okay, this must be the Mendi. This must be the Mendi. And I do feel great. And then eventually I realized that my reading was better. And I can extrapolate that to me being able to be focused. Now I work 16-hour days. I've always been fairly disciplined in some things and indisciplined in other things. For example, I train every day of my life at the gym. I lift weights. I'm a former athlete. I fast every day, and I've been doing it for over 1.5 decades, intermittent fasting. So I only eat at night. So there are some things that I'm very consistent, but there are things that I don't do. I don't read a book. I don't sit in front of a computer for 2 hours. It's impossible for me. I just can't keep the focus. And all of a sudden, these things I was able to do them in my 40s. And that's when the obsession kicked in. And that's when you would ask me, "What time is it?" And I would say, no, you don't want to know the time. Let me tell you about Mendi. And I just became that weirdo, And, but yeah, if it works, yeah, we can delve into exactly what it does and how it works. Sorry, I get passionate about this.
Well, not only are you a very good storyteller, but you're also a very good salesman.
Well, I'm actually not a salesman. The funny thing about it is I'm very passionate, but after Kickstarter, because we get a lot of publicity because of what we did on Kickstarter and stuff. I'm not even proud of the Kickstarter campaign. I'll tell you why. Because Kickstarter was never about money, and we ended up breaking it was the biggest mental health related campaign in history and all that. I used to come out literally as we were breaking records and my team was telling me, "Oh, let's announce records and stuff." I would literally come out. I can't get out of my way. I'm too transparent. And I would say, "I don't give a shit about the records. What we care about is the early adopters. Now we have 4,000 early adopters. Now we have 5,000 early adopters. What we're doing is we're building a team of people that are going to go on this journey with us. I don't care about selling Mendis. I honestly..."
Evangelists.
Well, I'll tell you, it's about learning. I'm a user. What I want. So when we launched on Kickstarter, there were a lot of people saying, and I'll get into how the technology works, but there was a lot of people that would come in and they would write, "Oh, this is bullshit. This is a scam. This sounds too good to be true." If you go back on Kickstarter and you see my comments, and I know a lot more now than I did then, but I still know very little, right? And when I took the job, I didn't want the job. I wanted Sriram Krishnan from Twitter to take the job. And I asked him. And then the founders asked me to take the job. And I said, "Look, I know nothing about science. I know nothing about the space. It would be offensive." And what they said to me is, "Yeah, but you believe in us." And that's why I took the job. And I called two monster names in the entrepreneurial world. And they said, "Yeah, do it. You don't need to know anything. You just need to listen. And you need to care about people. And you need to communicate. The rest will work itself out." And that's basically how the journey has been. But when people would come out and they would say, "Oh, this is a scam. This is bullshit. This doesn't work." My response was I would get on Kickstarter and I would write them, "Hi, my name is Moha. Here's some information about me. And this is my phone number." So if you go on Kickstarter, Kickstarter has my phone number everywhere. That's why thousands of people have my phone number. And it's been great. But basically what the technology does is it's an FNIRS technology, functional near infrared spectroscopy. So basically what it does is the headset that you showed now when you shared the video it's a measurement tool. That's what it is, which allows you to visualize and control the activity to the prefrontal cortex. So basically it will teach you to be able to manage the amounts of oxygenated blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. What this is going to do is it's gonna play as part of an overall brain health system. Because Mendi is not only neurofeedback, but neurofeedback is a very powerful component of what Mendi does. But there's also other elements in it, in the brain health system, which I can get into as we go on.
Great. Let's move now to the next chapter. So we have talked about how you invested in Mendi, but how did actually or did the founders move from an idea to a startup? How did they validate the idea? So you spoke about that prototype that they built. You spoke about the encounter between both of them. You spoke also about the foundings that they got from official organizations. Were there any other activities that were undergoing to prove that it worked and to validate the initial business idea?
So, I mean, these founders are very, very special in that Sammy has good business sense. He's like a creative genius that kind of like has, and Rickard is about finding solutions to the most complex problems. He is one of the most incredible founders I have ever met in my life. And basically what they did is they're very scrappy and they're very frugal. And what they did is that with very little, they accomplished a lot. And they had built a relationship with Stockholm University, and they were running tests and they were validating the technology as it went along. And, I would get things like, oh, well, if this works, why aren't there controlled clinical studies that are published? And well, because it's new. It's just like these things to me are just so silly, the things that these people write. Now we do have studies and we do have, we apply open science on everything. And we have an open invitation to open science and to all the scientific community, to academia, to come in and collaborate, because that's the whole point, is that we want to learn. What is it? Why is it that all these people are saying that they're having all these benefits? Why is it that I'm sitting here saying that it did this and it did that? And why are there millions of people saying neurofeedback helped me with this or that? What we need to do is we need to be able to put a color-coded, evidence-based basically chart so that people can understand with an absolutely transparent, no bullshit approach why it is that things are happening and why it is that they're getting the improvements, what to be able to track those improvements. And they built it because they both had this idea that this had to go to the masses. Neurofeedback is something that had helped, Sammy. And what he was thinking is like, it's not very practical that people have to come. He had a clinic. He knows what it's like. 5 people a day would come. It's very costly. You would go there. You'd pay $100 per session. You would get, 20, 30 sessions. The average, single mom with 3 kids can't afford that. They're trying to pay rent. And that was kind of where the whole idea happened. Even before we had arrived at this, it's about overall brain health. That is what we're doing. We're improving brain health. Back then it was just neurofeedback for the masses. And it was like, there must be a cheaper, better, more effective way for people to, in their own homes, without having to get in their car and driving. If you've got 4 kids and you've got all these things, that you don't have to, mortgage your house and able to be, to get some improvements.
Yeah, were there actually prototypes that were built and were like distributed to beta users?
100%. So not only that, but when I joined as Mendi CEO, there was an actual brain gym which had to get shut down because of COVID. So we had about 2,000 people use Mendi. So basically this brain gym, which is, you can Google it. I mean, it's an actual gym with 6 tables where people would come and they would do Mendi sessions. So people would book it online. Look, Sweden is like a tech superpower. Like, these people are the early adopters, and these people are, this is the first world. For me, coming from Costa Rica, it's a very, very glaring difference between them and us. And obviously there are synergies and there is an overlap, but it's a very, very, very different ecosystem. And we had a brain gym where people would come, they would book it, and they would start training with Mendi. And when we shut it down because of COVID-19, because of this terrible pandemic, what happened was that we reached out to some people, because there were people that were booking sessions every week. So they would come to use Mendi every week because it wasn't accessible anywhere else. And then we seeked them out and we gave them prototypes. And these people have incredible stories. Like these stories are just like, that's what gets me up in the morning. As I was telling you before the podcast, I usually get up earlier than I did today. But basically that is what keeps us going, because my story is very common, and there's even more exciting stories, and there's even more, and that's the whole thing. But yes, there were different iterations. So since I have been in the company, I have gone through 4 different iterations of Mendi, and the one that we're launching within a few weeks to 10,000 users. So we have 10,000 pre-orders that are going to be getting their products pretty soon. That's going to be the version 4 is what we call it. It's going to be just Mendi to them, right? And it's got a heart rate variability monitor, because it's not just about, it's about overall brain health, and it's about overall health. And Mendi is not a hardware company. It just has a hardware component, which is the measurement tool that makes you access the neurofeedback and, those, but there's value in it even without the hardware.
How did you actually decide to convert a prototype or an idea into a real business? What were the different steps that you underwent there? And perhaps it's also the time to let us know a little bit more about the Kickstarter campaign and the crowdfunding campaigns that you ran that were highly successful.
So the Kickstarter campaign, when you talk about it, so the whole idea was, how do you manage, because there is a hardware component, how do you separate the production from the sales? That is a big upfront cost. How do you mitigate it? And that's why they had come up with this idea as a proof case for launching on Kickstarter. It was basically, that's where you get the early adopters, which are the people that are going to help us shape this product, that are people that are going to be invested in this product. And that is at the same time a way to be able to build that model of we can sell and build separately. That was the whole idea. Just so you understand, and this is what people don't understand, because we didn't give up any equity with Kickstarter. We didn't go on Kickstarter to raise funds. As I told you, I began raising funds recently. I've started talking to some of the biggest players in the world now, but we had done. Remember, I'm an investor, and I had done an investment round before we launched on Kickstarter. So Kickstarter was never about money for us, and the priority is not on sales, because after Kickstarter, I literally pretty much shut down sales. And you know why? That's because we learned enough with Kickstarter that the approach was clearly not, let's put some gas on the selling machine. No, that what I realized is that even the messaging that we had on Kickstarter, which I was not very involved in the production of that video and that campaign. I was just somebody that came in. I was just like a convert. I was somebody that literally just believed in the mission and just went along with it. And okay, let's spread this to the masses. But I think I had my steepest learning curve during Kickstarter, when people started, coming out to me and saying, hey, this is bullshit. Hey, you can't say this. And my response has always been the same. I always say, there is nobody on this planet that is more consistent than I am. I will dare anybody. I am the most black and white human being in the world. And I always say, I'm either the worst CEO in the world, or I'm the perfect CEO for Mendi, because I literally don't give a shit about the sales and all that. The only KPI that we really care about is lives improved, because I'm one of them, and I have come to meet a lot of these people. And basically what happened was that we understood that the focus needs to be on science. And what I did is I went out and I found the most hardcore branch of science. So I went and I seeked out those open science, hardcore black and white neuroscientists. And they would ask me, why are you calling us? What's the agenda? And my answer was, the agenda is the truth. Like, let's find the truth. And they're like, well, what if the truth doesn't let you sell Mendi? I'm like, that's great, because I'm not trying to sell Mendi. I'm trying to fucking learn. I'm trying to understand, and they would tell me, well, what if the what if we tell you something that you don't want to hear? I'm like, well, the sooner I hear it, the better, so that I can pivot. What if there's something that needs to be done that is completely different? So basically, there is absolutely no fear because we're hiding absolutely nothing. We know that we don't know all the answers. People ask me questions like, well, are these changes that you have made, are they permanent? What happens if you stop using Mendi for 5 years? You know what my answer is? And I'm sorry if the swearing is a problem, but my answer is, how the fuck am I supposed to know? I don't know. And you know what the neuroscientists would tell you? They don't know. The thing is, the bar is very low for knowledge. But if we all together, completely transparently, go on this journey and we learn together and we open up the studies and we open up the research, and there's no hidden agendas and there's no hidden behind the scenes bullshit and padding of the statistics in the studies, because that's what the studies are not. A scientific study does not mean that everything is, we were talking about Tel Aviv University, I think, and the product and the platform that we're using now. It's like, it's not kosher just because it's science. There's a lot of, science has been heavily prostituted throughout history. What we want to do is we want to put a magnifying glass on every step so that we know as much as possible and we're as transparent as humanly possible. And that is not going to create friction or resistance between us and the scientific community. That is why I told you I have great discussions that will become deeper and deeper and deeper with members of the scientific community, of NASA, of some of the biggest universities in the world. And they are willing to work with us because they see that we mean this approach.
So what I understand is that the Kickstarter campaign eventually was a tool for you to study the market reaction, to better understand how people were reacting and feeling about the product, right?
Look, one of the comments that I got, I think one of the first calls I got was from somebody at Tel Aviv University. And he actually told me, fantastic neuroscientist, great chess player. He's just fantastic guy. His name is Ido Ben Arsi. And one of the first calls I had with him is he told me, I just called because I was curious, because I didn't know if you are this person or if you're out of your fucking mind. Because those are the only two options. Like, you're crazy, and that's why you put your phone number there. He's like, I did the research and I realized this is your only phone number. It's not like you made a phone number, like this is your phone number. And clearly, and I was like, yeah, well, it worked, because now you're talking to me and I'm going to learn from you. And my agenda is very clear. I'm not going to tell you, yeah, help me with this and then manipulate it. No, my agenda is, let's learn. I'm a user. I want to learn. I want to understand what happened to me. Why is it that at age 40 plus, I'm making improvements? How do we extrapolate that knowledge? How do we apply it to everybody? And
And I think that's very important. I mean, in the startup phase, you have to be open. You have to, be able to accept the feedback, even if it's negative, and you have to learn from others. I see too many founders, too many startups that kind of try to hide what they are doing. They do not want to speak about it. They don't want to share the knowledge. And here we have a very different approach. And I very much appreciate that approach, because I think that's worth the effort, even if it's hard sometimes to hear some negative comments or some different remarks about what you have been investing your life in. I think that's very important to go to the next level, and the next level, that will be a fantastic transition. That will be the scale up. Can we say you are in a scale up phase already right now, or is this something that
we're in a de-risking science and in an R&D phase? We're doing things in a very different way. We literally have neuroscientists and product people working together. It is pretty uncommon to have. So we have people building natively on Unity, on Android, on iOS. We're building all the matrix of everything that we're doing, and we're doing it in conjunction with neuroscientists. We want to be as accurate as possible. When I told you my issue with Kickstarter, because I've got some reservations on Kickstarter, is I feel in hindsight that campaign preys on the desperation of people like me who would have bought, to be honest, anything. I wouldn't have bought it because I'm not a Kickstarter user. I've never been. That was my first campaign that I've ever backed. But bottom line is the ethical aspect becomes so important that it makes the process a lot more complicated. It's not just about like, yeah, let's build a game and let's build another game. Let's make, the frog chases the chicken. And it's not about that. There needs to be a purpose to everything. It's not bells and whistles. It's not a toy. This is something that is meant to improve people's lives.
Okay, so what is actually the next level you want to reach, and how does the scale-up process actually look?
So
like?
when you talk about scaling up, you have to understand that we're in a phase right now where we're not looking to add users. We're looking to learn from the ones we have. We have 10,000 women and men that have, and by the way, 35% of them are millennials. And a lot of them are what we call the urban warriors. And they're people that are they're in it. They're trying to cope with the stress of modern society. Do you understand how difficult it is? I don't know. Do you have any kids?
I do, absolutely.
How old?
11.
11. Boy or girl?
It's a boy.
Okay. Do you understand the pressures on an 11-year-old boy are very different to the pressures that you and I had growing up? I think you and I are from the same generation.
Absolutely.
It's very different. It's a lot harder growing
70s.
up today. Like, I hear all these stories of all these teenagers having panic attacks and having all these issues of social anxiety. And it's because there's so much noise. There's so much bullshit. There's Photoshop and Instagram and notifications and fake tits and everything is perfect and everybody's rich and everybody's happy and everything. Nothing is good enough. That plus all these stressful things in modern society is advancing. It is evolving. Technology is evolving at a pace that is so unfathomable that our brain really does not have the capacity to deal with it. What we are doing is we are in the business of building brain resilience. That's when elements that are very exciting, if you want to, we can go into as deep as you want, things like self-efficacy and resilience and brain hygiene. That's when these things come in. Mendi is intended for healthy people. It is intended for people that are looking for brain health. We know that 89% of the 10,000 people that have backed us right now, so approximately 8,900 of them, don't have an interest in any specific condition. They're just people that, they're like when you go to a gym, most people at the gym look like you and me. It's not the person that weighs 700 pounds, the person that is critically ill that needs something desperately. It's the people that look, but you want to be in better shape. You want to, you want to take care of yourself. That is what we're going with. Of course, we're going to learn a lot. Now we're at the phase where we're building cohorts. So instead of saying scaling as in we need a milestone where we want to hit, $10 million in sales or 30,000 more people using Mendi, that's not how we're looking at it right now. What we're looking at is we have 10,000 people. How do we hold their hand, engage them, build those cohorts, and start building this brain health system that is more and more personalized to each of those 10,000 people? And advice that I got from a very, very good friend of mine who happens to be the CEO of Spotify was, you should know your first 10,000 users by name. That is something that I put into practice. I spend about 3 to 4 hours per day, 7 days a week, talking to users. And a lot of these users don't have money to buy Mendi. They will never be Mendi users. Money is not the motivation. Understanding people is the motivation.
But how do you, so we have that 10,000 people cohort right now, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you want to go higher than that. You want to have bigger cohorts, a large number of people using Mendi. What does it take actually to go from 10,000 to 100,000 to 1 million users?
Well, the answer there is actually maybe surprising, but it's actually very easy. I've done this with phishing apps, and I've done this with other stuff that is way less important. With us, we know we're going to acquire 24,000 more Mendi users in 2021. We know that.
How do you do that? How do you know?
So we know that because we have data. because we're very data driven and we understand how to do things. For us, we're not going to start scaling until Q3 of 2021. So our only priority is these 10,000 users until then. Yeah, we will be selling. We're going to move to our own platform. We're on Indiegogo now. We went from Kickstarter to Indiegogo. We're building the science. We're learning from people. We're talking to the users, and that's going to become a lot more. That's going to become a lot deeper in 2021 and Q1 and Q2. But those people that are buying a Mendi right now, that are buying a headset and that are going to be using the software, those people are going on a journey with us for the next few years. That is what we're doing. We're taking these people on a journey with us, understanding those people, their motivations. You know, there's going to be constant surveys. There's going to be the World Health Organization mental health questionnaires, all sorts of different things that the scientists are looking over, and at every step they are analyzing so that these cohorts, we can provide the best possible guidance for the usage of this brain health service for our users. After that, that is when we start with the sales. And it's not an obsession with sales. Yeah, let's hack it and do whatever. It's got to be a very ethical way. And 24,000 users is not a very, very lofty goal. If you think about that, with zero marketing spend over the past few months, you know, because most of it happened on Kickstarter, we have achieved 10,000 users. But that is the key. The key is not 3+ million euros, which is what the press likes to talk about. What we care about is that these are 10,000 human beings. These are 10,000 people, and that each Mendi device can be shared by all the members of the family. So this potentially can be 30, 40, 50,000 people. It's never been done. The aggregate anonymous data that we can use to be able to find answers to the questions that we want is game changing. That is one of the reasons why the scientific community is very excited about what we're doing. And we're very open about everything that we do.
Let's talk about the future. Let's project ourselves in like 3 years from now. So the curves have been built. We know, and I think that's a very big challenge, the product is being adopted and is being regularly used, not like other technological devices that are being bought, and after a while they are just drawers and not being used anymore. But let's assume for a moment that that the journey goes well. How does the future for Mendi looks like for like in 3 to 4 to 5 years?
Look, the metric that we look at, I have a chairman of the board who is a fantastic person that I trust with my life. His name is Marcus Exall. And this is the guy who I remember when I made a little bit of money. Motivation changes, you know that, Pierre, with time. There's different stages in life, and the way you look at things, it's a very selfish thing, but we do it based on where we are in life at that moment. And for me, a few years ago, it was all about, when you're desperate for money and you don't have money to pay the rent, it's all about money. Then when you have a little bit of money, for some people, that means they want to have more money. And when they have $1 million, they want 10. And when they have 10, they want 100. And when they have 100, they're thinking, oh, why does that guy have $1 billion? And why does that guy have 10 billion? And it never ends. For other people, it's different. And it just becomes, I have more money than I thought I was ever going to have when I was in Costa Rica. And I have access to these incredible people, and I have access to this incredible life, which I don't feel that I deserve. I just happen to, like I said, slip on a banana peel and end up here. I was just lucky enough that I was in Stockholm, and they're building these amazing things. This guy who is in London, Marcus Exall, I asked him, I have so many investors coming up to me and asking me what my investment criteria is. And I've invested in random things, and I really couldn't pinpoint it. And I was like, Marcus, what is your investment criteria? And he said to me, what you do is when you find a great company, you take the founders out to dinner. And if they look the waiter in the eye, then you invest. And if they don't look the waiter in the eye, you leave it on the table. It doesn't matter if it's the next whatever. It doesn't matter if you leave $10 billion on the table. It doesn't matter, because we're in the business of investing in good people that want to do good things. So the metric that we care about literally has nothing to do with revenue, literally has nothing to do with number. What it has to do is with lives impacted. And in 5 years, and this is, you can see that on our website, which we're launching soon because we're doing the website, the new website, is that what we want is by 2025 to have transformed the brain health of 10 million people. That is a very exciting journey.
Wow.
So when you talk about scaling up, yes, there are plans to scale up. And yes, I do have access to a lot of things. Yes. And I do have a leg with a lot of the big platforms and a lot of the big, health organizations and a lot of the big, a lot of the big companies, but we're focused. We're doing things one thing at a time. We're in the process of learning.
Well, I wish you to realize your plans. And there was one thing that I want to say before closing that podcast is talking to you is also an experience. I mean, you are full of energy, very positive energy. We have talked to each other before the podcast on the phone. And I really feel something different about you than with other people. So that's a very enriching experience for me too. Thank you so much for being on this podcast, Moha. Remind that you are the CEO of Mendi, a Swedish-based company that wants to change the health of the brain of millions of people.
I have really enjoyed meeting you, Pierre-Nicolas, and I can't wait to host you in Stockholm.
I will come soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a very nice day.
You too.